Hey guys, so this is the clone section. So in this section, we're gonna go over a few things. We're gonna go over the supplies needed, the solution and how to mix it, soaking of the cubes and prep for everything to get ready, selecting the perfect clones on the plant, how to actually clone, and then the first 2 weeks of the clone being in the dome. So one thing I wanna point out is I'm gonna pull an in-depth process, and it's gonna be kind of an extended, long learning process for cloning, but don't overthink it. Cloning's super simple. Usually when you clone, if you take a right clone and you have the right environment, it's gonna root and it's gonna be good for you. So don't overthink it. But this is cloning, it's pretty basic, so I hope you enjoy. So to get started cloning, you're gonna wanna start out with water. Usually having an RO system and having the temperature right at about 70 degrees is the perfect temperature. So now we got our water. We're gonna take a regular measuring cup. This one's a little small. You could use a bigger one because this one calls for a little bit more solution. But Clonex, we're just gonna read the back basically. It's 5 to 10 mils per liter. So we're gonna do the math, figure out how much liters are in 4 gallons of water. There's 3.79 liters, so times that by 4. I'm gonna round it, and we're gonna do 80 mils in this 4 gallon, basically doing 20 mils per gallon. And we're gonna give it the last 20 mils that we need. Right about there. So now we're gonna use a pH meter and we're gonna find out what the pH is. We're either gonna raise it or lower it depending on what's needed. So the white one does temperature and parts per million. So a good thing with this one is never let it dangle like that. This is a very fragile meter, so always try to be as careful as you can be. But since we've been kind of filming in here and these lights are hot and everything, the water got 2 degrees hotter, which is not a problem. We're doing clones, so we want it to be a little on the hotter side. I said 68 to 72 is the range, so we're sitting at 72. I think we're doing just fine. Okay, so now we're looking at the ppms here. It's 620 parts per million. That's pretty high for clones, but that's just how I do things. You'll see here once we go a little forward that the clones will be really healthy here in the future. But a lot of people will recommend 100 to 200 parts per million for clones. So going back to the temp, still at 72. We're now gonna hit the pH. This is the pH meter I have in my hand, so you can remove this. You always wanna take this out. Be very careful with this meter as well, and make sure to clean the tips of that. Make sure to get inside and clean that tip very well. So this cap, you unscrew the top, slide the meter out of there. This little red thing is like a suction thing. In this cap, there's a little bit of probe solution you can buy. It just keeps the tip of this probe wet. You never want this tip of this probe to dry out. This is a very fragile probe. These things are like 50 bucks, I think, if you gotta replace them quite often if you're rough with it. Okay, so we got a pH of 6.9, it just bumped up to 7. So we're at 7.0 pH. It usually settles out as it stirs and settles and dissolves in between the mixture. So we're gonna put a pH down in to get that pH down to about 5.9, 6.1. For cloning, I personally like to make it a 5.9. So that's where we're gonna take this today. Okay, so here we got some pH down because we were at a 7.0 and we're trying to bring it down to a 5.9. So we're gonna shake it up. pH you probably don't need to shake, but I do it anyway just because that's how I do it. Some pHs are more diluted than others. This one is a light dilution, so the best way to usually do this is pour it into the cap first and just start real slow. You're gonna start with just like real minimal, a couple little mils, a drop's worth. You're gonna start that in there. And what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna pull your probe out, stir. I always like to give it the back spin. And then you're gonna put the probe back in. So see, I barely put any in, but this is a real light solution. This stuff doesn't dilute too well, so it only moved it to 0.1. I'm gonna basically just pour the rest of that cap in. We're gonna lift the probe out again. stir. Sometimes this is a back and forth process. You want to keep it as slow traveling as you can, because if you go below what you're trying to get to, then you got to put pH up into it, and that's never fun to go kind of back and forth like that. Let's hope we didn't go too low there. So I put it in, boom. Right there at 6.0, so we're looking pretty hot. We want to take it to 5.9. Once again, pull it out. Stir it up, give it a little backspin. Drop it in. Now this area catches some water in the probe, so when you put the probe in, it's always nice to like move it around or let it settle to the floor, because you want to get the exchange of water within that probe. But always be fragile with that meter. Boom. Oh, just backed up to 6.0. So let's let this settle a little bit. I'm gonna pull it out, give it a little stir. We're gonna put it back in there and hope it stays settled down at that 5.9. It doesn't look like it's gonna for us. It's gonna stay at 6.0. This is how it always happens. But no, it really did settle at, see, it jumped back up to 6. It's 5.9, 6.0. Is it safe to say it's 5.9 and a half?
Is it safe to say?
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna, just for the sake of the video and for, you know, a quote I always like to say is the difference between a good job and a bad job is 5 minutes. I'm gonna put a couple of drops. Oh, we don't wanna go over now. That's usually what happens at this point. You're trying to get it to the 5.9 and you'll get it to 5.8. A little backspin. See? Boom. We're gonna settle right at the 5.9. So what you're gonna wanna do always is make sure the meter is put back safely. So put the meter back in, slide it in. It's always got like a pressure. Push it into the solution and then tighten that cap and set that off to the side very nice and safely. And this one, same thing. I mean, as you're going and as you do this more, you always want to take care of your tools, but clean that, once a week or so. Okay, so now we got our temperature set, our solutions mixed and set, and our pH set. So we're pretty much ready to go and soak our cubes.